All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's break out the Mist kit. Let's get that explained to you, and let's go ahead and just kind of step through that. Okay, so this is the kit that I bought off of Amazon. I paid in the neighborhood of almost 20 bucks for this kit, and it comes with about 50 foot of 1/4 inch vinyl tubing, and then your Mist connectors, and then some clips to attach the hose to whatever it is you want to attach it to. This is what the connectors look like, T connectors. And then it comes with brass Mist nozzles that will screw into those connectors, some plumber's tape, a connector to connect up your 1/4 inch hose to a water hose, some mounting staples if you want to staple it up to some wood, zip ties if you wanted to zip tie it to something, and a tubing cutter. So kind of excited about having the tubing cutter. I could have used this in the past. It has a little lock, unlock it, put your tube in there, and cut away. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is take this hose and we're going to put in our water hose connector on it. Water hose connector has a screened grommet. Take our clamping nut off. Put our tube through there. Actually, I got that on backwards, so put it this way. Slide our tube up onto the nipple and then tighten that down so that holds that tube clamped down in place. We can come back and tighten this down later with a wrench or something. All right, then we take our filter. Actually, let's put the filter and then put the grommet. I didn't see which way that went, but that makes sense to me. We'll take our water hose end. Screw that on there. Now I'm going to have the hose end right at the entry, but I'm not going to start my misting until I'm at the edge of my bench right here. So if I leave my hose, all right guys, don't be going anywhere on me. So if I leave my hose at the entry and then give myself some slack, and if I want to start my misting right here, so if I have a 20-inch seed tray, this is about where I'm going to want to start my misting. So I want to take my tubing cutter, cut that, throw our first connector on there, that easy. You got to grab the right connector. It has a self-clamping lock, so if you need to release this, if you push that little piece in, you can take the tube back out. When you put that tube in there, it's going to self-seal, and then you can't pull it back out. Then you take your brass misting nozzle. You're going to screw that right into the holder there. There we go. I'll get this up here to where I can flip the water on and off to test this nozzle. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test the spray area of this nozzle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little bit of tubing that I can crimp over. Since I can take this back out, I'll put that in there. I'll crimp this so the water doesn't come out, and then I can reach down here and turn this on. So let me go power up the water hose. All right, so I've brought over some late seasoned tomatoes I've got started. I've got some artichokes in here. So we're going to pretend that this is a tray holding all my fresh cuttings inside this tray, and I'm going to test the mist area over this. Now also keep in mind there's a little slight breeze blowing right now, so it might not give off an accurate representation. Let's go ahead and turn this on. Yeah, that hit. The wind is really blowing that mist, which most of the time during the summer up here, we don't get any rain or get any wind, so we'll turn that back off. Now I've got a leak over here. All right, just had a quick lesson learned. I've seen this before, so I already had the parts on hand. But when they send you this, this is a standard thread. This is what comes with your irrigation system. It doesn't go directly to your water hose. So there's a converter that will screw onto your water hose threads, and then it will adapt to standard threads. So that's what I had to go in my bag of tricks and pull out. So now that I've got that figured out, and I went ahead and put up a wind block over here of a piece of styrofoam that I had to kind of block any wind off so that we can get this thing figured out. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this up here and turn this on. And I'm kind of seeing that if I attach it to this run of wire right here and kind of spraying out and down in this direction, it's getting out to here just fine. And there's a lighter mist that covers back here. So I think this is the angle, this is the height that I'm really going to want to go with. I could put it up here real quick and kind of see how that does. And that's not bad either. That's still reaching over here and kind of easing a little fine mist down to these plants too. So I guess either one of these would be fine. I may go up there just because it spreads out and mist a little finer. I know you can't see it on camera, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'll go ahead and turn my valve off. And it's spraying a mist coverage probably about 2 foot wide. So if I go about 18 inches down and put in another coupler about 18 inches, I'll get some overlapping coverage, but I'll have good coverage here. So I'm only going to do just a few cuttings at a time, but I'm going to go ahead and cut the entire length of the bench. So I'm looking at 10 feet of pipe, and what I'll do is I'll crimp it on one end, and then I will add misters as I need them. I thought about it. I'm not going to run the entire length. I'm just going to put this little piece of hose back in here, and then I will take some tape, and then we'll crimp it and then tape that off down here so that we're not leaking and losing a lot of water down here. If I lose just a little bit, that's fine. I'll tell you what, I'm going to use a zip tie. Just take a zip tie, and then we'll just wrap a zip tie around it, and it'll hold that crimp. There we go. All right, so if I turn that on, I've got no leaking at the end. If I put this up here, the second one's really spraying a lot. This one must have a clog in it already. I wonder if I change that out, if I'll get some better mist. I'll turn that water off and let's change this little nozzle out. See, the bad thing about it is these little nozzles they clog very easy. So if you got any trash whatsoever, it's going to clog those little micro misters up. That's why they give you the screen. It's probably actually better if you have a filter in line that would 100% filter out all impurities. If I continue to have a problem with these nozzles doing that, I'll just order a little filter, and I'm sure it won't cost much, but it'll be worth the money just to have good, consistent coverage. Put that back up here. Let's have another look at this. Tell you what. Now let's turn this back on and see how. See, that's a much bigger mist. Good coverage there. I think I'm going to be happy with this. Now the next thing is to get this hooked up to my mist timer controller. An ideal propagation mist is going to be every 10 minutes we want this to run for about 7 seconds. And what that does is when you take your fresh cuttings and you have just your little bit of leaves on there, and you put that fine mist on those little bit of leaves, as the water evaporates off the leaves, it's going to pull moisture up through those stems and kind of help keep that cutting alive and get moisture flowing through there, and that kind of helps aid in setting roots. So that's the purpose of the mist. Let's take you inside and let's show you the mist controller that I've got. I've had this mist controller for a number of years, probably about 7 years now, and I've used it off and on in the same kind of manner. I actually did a video about 3 years ago. It kind of covered it, but let's go back in, let's cover it again. We'll go ahead and turn this off, and we will come back and get this zip tied in place, and we're going to do a follow-up video showing the results of actually doing cuttings in here and getting cuttings to root. All right guys, so this is what I'm using for my mist controller. You can see I just turned it on 3 minutes ago. It's been unplugged probably for about 2 years, and it holds a 9-volt battery. As long as I have a 9-volt battery, it'll hold my settings. But guess what? My battery died. So I've lost all my mist control settings. I would do a demonstration on camera on how to configure this thing, but there's a YouTube video out there on how to program an 8056 AC6S, and I'll be referring to that video, and I recommend that if you buy one of these mist controllers that you just go ahead and flip over to there. Now like I said, the mist is supposed to every 10 minutes kick on for 6 seconds and then kick off. And then you can set your start times in the morning, and then you can also set in the evening times when you want your mist to stop. I usually do my mist right up until sunset. That way any kind of heat that's left over can evaporate off the leaves before dew sets in the night, because we really don't want those leaves to be wet all night long, because that's a perfect recipe for fungus. So we want to give it a little time in the evening, right before it gets dark, to dry off. So this is what I'm using. I've had this one probably about 8 or 9 years now. There's probably better ones on the market by now, but this at the time was the only one that was available that I found that would do timing down to the seconds, and you could do up to 6 controllers. Now I have this wired in, and it goes outside of my shed out to my well house, and then I have one of these irrigation valves that's tied in out there, and what it does is it sends a signal to these wires, and these are low voltage wires, so you don't have to worry about getting electrocuted or rain getting on it and it, you know, arcing and sparking and all that stuff. This is DC voltage, so you don't have to worry about it. But this is the one that I use, and it defaults closed shut. If I lose power, that valve goes back to shut. And there are some out there that will default to on, so when you lose power, that valve opens up. You don't want that. Just make sure that you get the right valve. So I'm on well water here, And then I have a junction box, and right down in my junction box, I got to clean all this up. There are my valves. Right off the end of that is a low pressure. What it does is it knocks my 40 pounds PSI wellhead pressure down to the mist controller here, so it doesn't just overpower my mist heads down the line. So what I'll do is I'll tie in here with a hose, and then I'll run that hose right over to my mist house over there and tie in. That way that I can move this thing as needed if I have it hooked up to a hose. And you can see right now that I have a hose that runs right out to it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this build video. I hope you enjoyed the video. It sure was fun getting this thing converted to something that I can now use it for. It was just sitting out in the pasture empty. We raised spring chickens in it. We're going to be done with chickens for a while, but I've not converted this thing to a point that I could not go back and start raising chickens in it. All I've got to do is take the bench out and then put a tarp over it, and then I'm right back to raising chickens in this hoop coop. But during the summer, we don't have any plans, so we're going to run propagations off of this. We'll be doing an upcoming video of some of the things that we're going to be rooting from cutting. I've got maybe some figs, some Camellia tea census. You know, it's the black tea that you drink for southern sweet tea. We've got some bushes of those that we're going to be putting in there. We're going to be trying some different things. I'm really excited to get right back into growing out cuttings from under, or rooting cuttings under mist. I've enjoyed it in the past. It's something that I do look forward to doing. All right, so stay tuned for those update videos or those future videos of where we're rooting cuttings under mist in this mist house. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Remember, keep growing, keep building, and always keep adventuring. Together, we're Flums and Famous, and we'll see you next time.